It's about time, Apple. It only took you 14 versions to catch up, but you finally did it. What's going on, guys? My name is David Tomic and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the brand new version of iPad OS 14, OS 14, and absolutely everything to do with the WWDC 2020. If you're new to the tech space and first of all have no idea what WWDC 2020 stands for, it stands for the Worldwide Developers Conference in 2020. This is an Apple-hosted event that was for the first time ever hosted over the worldwide internet. Usually it is a face-to-face conference with tickets costing upwards of $1,500 US. However, because of the whole COVID-19 pandemic, Apple has opted for the online-only experience absolutely free of charge. So this time around, we've had hundreds and hundreds of developers and tech fanatics like myself be able to tune in to the WWDC and experience absolutely everything. So for example, right now I have the iPad OS 14 up and running on a 6th gen iPad in front of me. The 6th gen iPad is able to run OS 14 without a problem. I'm gonna list every single device that is expected to be able to run iOS 14 when it launches officially later in September or October this year. Right now, the version running on my iPad is the developers beta. The developers beta is available for all individuals who wish to pay the developers beta costs of, I believe it is $99 US, or you can find yourself a free developers beta at the link below. Now just quickly, I have no affiliation to this site. It is just where I managed to find my developers beta to download and utilize for the purposes of this video. Now I've spent the last day playing around with iOS 14 and all the new features and functions that are available to this device. Obviously, everything on an iPad is slightly different to what is available on an iPhone. There are some key differences, but overall it is predominantly the same. Let's start with the biggest and most talked about feature, and that is the widgets on the side panel. So if you're an iPad user, unfortunately right now in the beta's developers version, you can only have the widgets in the Today section of the menu, which permanently is not on the screen. You cannot drag and drop these widgets onto the home screen into positions like you can on the iPhone. Now this is something that I'm hoping will change in the future, because it would be nice to have these widgets on your home screen on an iPad, especially with that much larger real estate. However, at the time being, as this is recorded, which is, let me just check the date, the 28th of June at 8:33 p.m, there is no implementation of the widgets onto the home screen on the iPad OS. What it does have, on the other hand, is the same 3 widget system that the iPhone has. It features a small, medium, and a large widget for a selected variety of apps. At the moment, there isn't too many available on the iPad. That is predominantly for the fact that it's brand new, just released, but more and more developers will come to the party. At the moment, Apple has noted in their developing guidelines that the small widget, which is actually most of my widgets on this iPad, if I'm being honest, this is technically considered a small widget. When you tap on it, it automatically opens up the app. It does not open up as a button or as a feature. So for example, if I were to scroll down here to the larger widget, which gives me more information about my activity on this iPad, and you just tap on Safari or whatever, it opens it directly to that feature. Something that has changed the predominant way an iPhone user uses their iPhone is the app library. Now, the app library is an automatic accumulation of all your apps grouped together by what I'm assuming is an algorithm and automatically distributed into different folders for your convenience. It is usually located at the very end of your pages, which now you can also hide, but we'll get to that in a second. Unfortunately, with the iPad OS, there is no app library. So it doesn't matter how far we swipe across, there is absolutely no app library. This is a bit of a letdown, considering that more people would have larger storage space on their iPad, more apps, more games, more diversity in what they have, and it would be a nice little additional feature. Maybe we'll see this in the full release, maybe we won't, but for the time being, it is not in the iPad OS. Another thing that isn't available on the iPad, but it is available on iPhone OS, is the simple fact that you can hide pages from your view. So usually if you're an iPhone user or you're anything like me, you have a ton of apps sitting in a random folder or a ton of apps sitting on another page hidden at the back of your iPhone. Now you can actually go into what Apple has claimed it jiggle mode.
I just go into jiggle mode?
And automatically activate and deactivate different pages of your iPhone. So if you have 10 pages to scroll through to get to the back one, you can now just hide all 9 of them, so you only have your main pages that you need, and switch to the app library when you need it. Now obviously if you're an Android user, this has been a thing for decades and it's nothing new. It is how we operate, it is how the system has been designed. But having said that, Apple has done this in their own unique little way. Android has had widgets time and time again, whereas iPhone and Apple has now introduced the stacked widgets. So stacked widgets is a very Apple way of developing and a very Apple way of creating a new feature. So stacking widgets allows you to literally do that. Stack your favorite widgets one on top of the other in order to create your favorite stack. And then you can quickly just swipe through them to get all the notifications you need. That way you don't take up all the real estate and you get all the functionality of it. Something I'd definitely like to see on an Android, but for now I'm happy that it's on the iPad. Now another feature that's unique to the iPad is an update to the Apple Pencil. If you're a user like me who uses the Apple Pencil all the time and you have a tendency to write text more than you have to type. So for me personally, I'm usually in a meeting taking notes. This is the easiest and quickest way for me to take notes without really disrupting the meeting and acting in a professional manner. For me, it's just write notes, keep talking and keep conducting the meeting. Whereas if I were typing constantly, I'd be looking down, shifting, changing, and it would be a little bit more inappropriate. A good thing that has come to Apple iPad OS 14 now is Scribble. Scribble allows you to write like you normally would with a pencil, but it automatically translates that into text. I've been having a good go at this for a solid 2 hours as I was scribbling different things to see how it would work, and honestly, it's pretty good. My handwriting is not the best, but it is able to capture most of what I write. If I take a little bit of time to slow down and articulate my words properly, then it definitely captures almost every single word I wrote. The good thing is if you're an artist or just somebody having a play with shapes and features, if you start drawing a shape and pause just before you finish it, it'll automatically detect that shape and create the perfect shape for you. So for example, I'm right-handed, but to draw a perfect circle with my left hand is now very, very easy. So a very simple feature that should have been introduced a long time ago, but as technology improves, obviously so do the things that go with it. This is a feature I'm very excited to continue using and look forward to seeing in the full release of iOS 14. Now, if you haven't really understood the theme so far, it's a whole refresh of the UI. The UI has gotten a lot sleeker, a lot more compact, a lot more elegant, and in my opinion, a lot more Apple. There's been a redesign from the iPad to the iWatch to the TV system, all the way through the larger updates of their operating system of their MacBooks and Mac computers. So what you'll notice now is if you get a call, for example, it used to take up your whole iPhone screen. Now instead, there'll only be a little bit of a drop down from the top that you can swipe away or answer depending on what you want to do with that call, which doesn't disrupt your complete workflow. The same thing goes with Siri. Siri used to open up and dominate your entire screen, whereas now, if we just go, "Hey Siri," it's a little bit slow, but it only opens up in the bottom corner. What you will also notice is up in the top, a little orange icon appears next to the Wi-Fi symbol on the iPad. Now, what that means is the fact that the microphone is active. If that orange light were to go green, for example, it means an application is using your camera. So this is a great way to manage the privacy on your device. If something is using your microphone or your camera in the background that you aren't aware of, it is very, very simple to understand now that something is using it. Even though Siri has gotten a more compact, much more minimalistic appearance, unfortunately it isn't utilizable in a multitasking way. So Siri is in the bottom corner or only taking up a tiny portion of your iPhone screen. You'd think that you'd be able to use the background apps and continue scrolling your Safari page, for example. Well, no, unfortunately, once you tap away from Siri or try to scroll, it completely removes Siri and gets on with the app you were using before. Something that can be used simultaneously is picture-in-picture mode, something that has been around on an Android for decades, but we won't get into that. Picture-in-picture mode now allows you to, for example, if you're watching a full screen video, get out of that video, go into your notes, type a quick note, come back to that video. Or if you're in FaceTime, get out of FaceTime, find a phone number, and then tell them that phone number directly in a smaller picture-in-picture. You can resize, move it from one corner to another, or anywhere in the screen that you like. Whereas previously, it would close out of that app, open another app, pause your FaceTime, resume your FaceTime later on, and it would just be a nightmare. So now it's definitely a much easier, much more native picture-in-picture mode that is a great addition to iOS 14. Something that hasn't been spoken about iOS 14 too often on YouTube is the integration of iOS 14 and AirPods. This is actually something really cool and something I am definitely jealous of as an Android user. Yes, Android has this, but not as good. So with the new AirPods, you're going to have the ability of smart switching. Now what this means is that the Bluetooth in your AirPods and the connectivity between your Apple devices all talk to each other. So if you're sitting there watching something on your iPad with your AirPods in, you put your iPad down, you go over there, you grab up your iPhone, and you start doing another video on your iPhone, your AirPods will automatically switch to that iPhone audio instead of the iPad audio you had going on before. This also works if you're on your iPhone and then switch to your MacBook and vice versa. This is something that makes transitioning your Bluetooth headphones so easy. It is definitely a useful feature and something that you will realize is incredible without even realizing it. Another little feature that has changed slightly, but it is quite noticeable if you're paying attention to detail. The new update has increased the saturation and brightness of your device. So your blacks have gotten richer and darker and your whites have gotten crisper. All your colors have become more vibrant and cleaner. It isn't something that you're going to notice unless you pay attention. For example, the Notes app, the black is now truly black. It isn't a dulled out gray anymore. So this is just a simple change, but again, it is moving into that new style, that new Apple way and that new Apple branding. One downside of the beta version of iOS 14 though is the fact that it is actually chewing my battery a little bit quicker than I'd like it to. I don't know if it's just the beta, if it's some bugs early on, but it is definitely going through the battery. In about an hour and a half, I've lost about 30%. So on an iPad, not so great. Usually I'd get maybe about 30% more than that. So it isn't terrible, but it is noticeable. Anyway, that's all I've had the liberty of playing around with on iPadOS 14 and iOS 14. If you have any questions about the software, how to install it, how to find out all the extra features, or really something more specific about the software, feel free to leave a comment down below. I reply to as many people as I can. Thanks so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you smash that subscribe button 2020 style. And as always, I'll see you next Monday.